This is an ecosystems video, which could be your third video for your homework. Have a look at this diagram. It's about nutrient cycling. So in other words, how does nutrients kind of almost have this natural recycling process? So nutrient cycling is about the living organism, for example, our plants or trees. How do they continue to stay alive? It's obviously, the soil has a key part to play. Now, the soil gets its nutrients, again, how? The dead leaves and animals that are found on this tree will obviously naturally die, they fall onto the ground. Now, that organic matter, known as litter, will naturally dissolve, again, as you can see, through rainfall. As they decompose, these dead leaves and animals will release that kind of nutrients into the soil. And then obviously the kind of nutrients then gets absorbed by this soil. Some of it may get washed out through leaching. And then naturally, those roots, as you can see, will allow the nutrients to easily be absorbed, continuing this cycle of, let's say, nutrients. Now, you also need to know for ecosystems, how does change affect ecosystems? Now, as you can see this picture, we can see algae has covered the whole of this pond. You need to know if this is a human or a natural change that has affected the ecosystem, and we know this as eutrophication. This diagram easily explains the process of what eutrophication is. Now let's think about it. Obviously, we have lots of food that come from farms. Now farmers obviously use fertilizers to help these products grow. But these fertilizers obviously contain chemicals such as nitrates. Remember that word, nitrates. Now think about these nitrates. When it rains, that easily through surface runoff, as you can see that word, washes into kind of our water streams, for example, ponds, lakes, or even rivers. Now, that fertilizer will obviously then allow algae to kind of almost grow on a massive scale. But when it grows on a massive scale, it obviously has an impact, which is the change we're talking about on the ecosystem. If the algae grows on another level, like the whole thing turns green, you need to understand that that obviously blocks the sunlight. Now think about it. If it blocks the sunlight, that is obviously going to then deplete the oxygen levels inside the kind of like pond or the river, whatever it is, which then has an impact on, let's say, as you can see, these fishes are now starting to starve of oxygen and eventually they will die. One natural cause of change in ecosystems is obviously climate change. Now, you could argue that actually climate change, when there's natural heat waves or droughts in certain parts, that will obviously impact lakes, and that will obviously impact, let's say, marine life. So that's another example you could talk about easily, or increasing global temperatures through climate change will affect ecosystems in many ways.